Quiet, quiet, friends. I have a tale to tell before the tavern closes tonight. I have come a very long way, and seen so many places. I have heard many stories, and I am happy to be here now to share them with you. So, gather round. This tale is one many of you know, though I doubt you know how it ends. This is the story of a young cleric, reared and raised in this very town. Their name is Mercurian. They were born in this town the same week as me, to the laundries of the town. They spent the mornings of their childhood playing by the river with me and the other kids. Their afternoons were spent helping their family wash the clothes of the town in the river, but in their eyes there was always a shine that I never could recognize. Every evening they went to the town Lorelei, and they would kneel between the pews praying to the goddess and her daughters. They would help the priests with their evening chores. They read the testament of her grace and could sing its poems from memory. Mercurian simply loved the goddess. It was as though Mercurian was born to love the goddess, and as we aged their devotion became more pious. They took the tenets of Our Lady of Grace to heart. They abstained from fury, alcohol, mushrooms, and plants as food. They joined the Lorelei of our town. To any who are not from this nation, a Lorelei is a temple to the goddess. And from there, they got to study more and more archaic texts, more specialized doctrines and rules, the story of the goddess and her daughters laid bare. Soon, they developed the gift. Devotion to deity or dogma is rarely rewarded in a tangible way. However, it does happen. Those who swear themselves to the sword may be granted magic beyond magic. Those who prove to be devoted to their gods may be gifted with the miracles and calamities that their gods are so fond of. However, as our Loremark's priests have taught us, the daughters of our goddess cause this. The daughters of our goddess bestow others of faith with magic and strength so that they may defend the world in the goddess's honor. Make no mistake, there are no other gods. Only our goddess guides those who are lost to fight for her world. One dark night, when the rain had turned to snow, one of our lumbermen had begun to freeze to death in the wet and cold. He stormed into the Lorelei where all of the townsfolk were sharing food and firewood. He was certain to die. The priests began to try and warm him up, but he was too far gone. As all hope was lost for the man, as his wife began to weep and his son began to wail, Mercurian raised their hands and began to pray. Their eyes changed, blazing like the morning sun on a cloudless day. Their feet lifted from the ground, and through the Lorelei windows light began to pour. They clasped their hands, and a cascade of sunlight danced from their palms. As they opened their hands, rainbow light shone around the room, the colors of the goddess's daughters painting the Lorelei. The heat from their hands formed into a butterfly and landed upon the lumberman's chest, and in a moment, his frozen flesh had thawed. His cheeks warmed, his heart began to beat again. This was Mercurian's first miracle. A miracle is a gift a cleric and their god can call upon to bless this world. It is powerful magic, healing the most grievous of wounds and brightening the darkest of hours. Miracles are only one tool that is offered to those of profound faith, but it is truly their most powerful. Tales abound of priests curing entire lands of sickness. healing battlefields of wounded soldiers, calming storms and forcing a bountiful harvest to erupt from the fields. A miracle can do no harm, and in this moment Mercurian's miracle had saved a man's life. The town cheered and danced around Mercurian. The man sat up and held his wife and his son. Mercurian just stared at their hands, tears rolling down their cheeks as their devotion to the goddess was paid in full. They would spend the next few years honing this skill, aiding the people of our town with their miracles as best they could. They saved the injured and sick, calmed terrible storms, fixed broken things, and did the goddess's bidding. However, one winter day, the Talon Knights of Les Novrain caught wind of Mercurian's incredible gift, and they were being sent south. I had joined the Talon Knights on their journey, and so did Mercurian. I went to learn stories. Mercurian went to aid them as a healer and a soldier. Though surrounded by dangerous men who drank and sinned, in the company of the mercenaries Mercurian became no less pious. Our goddess blesses the heart of the soldier, and Mercurian would learn battlefield tactics, weapon skills, and the trade of a warrior, but they were no less religious. Mercurian still prayed in their free moments, and would preach to the mercenaries to keep their morale up. One night I asked Mercurian if they were scared to go into battle, and they gazed at the gray sky. They shook their head and told me that they had begun to hear the goddess, and she told them that they would remain unharmed. We marched into the desert to the south, and while I learned of magic from the magisters and sand whisperers, Mercurian learned of the religions of the world, reading scrolls and speaking to priests of what they believed in. They would aid the magisters in reinforcing their cities against the sandstorms, and pray with them to help bolster their spells. It was interesting to watch, as Mercurian didn't attempt to tell those they met about the goddess, instead just learning their customs from them and relating those concepts to our own holy texts. We left the desert, but on our way through the burning wasteland, the needles of sand ripping at our cheeks and eyes in the constant sandstorms that dance across the plain, something was watching us. A giant beetle, a lougereux, tunneled up from the dunes and pinned one of the horses to the sand. As the soldiers drew their swords and rushed towards the creatures, 4 more unearthed themselves. Spears and swords meant nothing to their carapaces. The few battle mages in the Talon Knights' company summoned their powers and tried to keep the creatures at bay. Mercurian called upon the goddess, and their hand began to shake. Their fingertips caught fire one after another, and the sandstorm reacted. The sand flew faster. It began to turn to molten glass. It clung to the bodies of the beetles. They were encased. Each lougereux became fully bound in burning, molten glass. They shrieked in pain and terror. Mercurian prayed, louder and louder, the sand melting faster and faster. This was Mercurian's first calamity. Not all gifts from the goddess are gifts of mercy, and clerics have been known to call upon the powers of their gods to cast hellfire and death upon their enemies. Some calamities use the land, the goddess herself upturning earth to open pits to the shadowed lands below. Others simply spread disease and death on scales unimaginable. In Mercurian's life they were known to call stars to fall from the sky, force hellfire to creep from the depths and scorch the lands. They were known to burn the very souls of their enemies from the inside out. The battle was won, and Mercurian stood, staring at their hand in disbelief, in disillusionment. I later left the company of the Talon Knights, but in the time I remained with them, that look never left Mercurian. Their eyes looked troubled. Their mind seemed puzzled. I heard little of Mercurian after I left. However, on my way home, years and years later, I came across a company of Talon Knight mercenaries. Many were new faces to me, but those I recognized pulled me aside for a sit by their fire and a drink. As I drank the mulled wine, I could see in their eyes a fear I could not understand. I asked after Mercurian, wondering where my old friend was, and they all looked away. I asked if they had died, and one just shook their head. It had been nearing 2 decades since I had left them, and in that time, Mercurian had fought many battles with them. They told me of the siege of Windspire and the battle of Morkamen, where Mercurian had saved many lives, killed many soldiers. They told me Mercurian seemed increasingly pious, dedicated to the word, desperate for something. Mercurian had mastered their miracles, their calamities. They had become obsessed with understanding why the goddess would allow them to do such dark things in her name. They became fanatical to every word of the testament of her grace. Even those clearly metaphorical had become real. They had begun to lose their mind. Disillusionment is something that happens to many clerics. Whether their devotion is to a deity or a dogma, many simply renounce their vow and return to a normal life. But when the devout begins to question their path and fall deeper and deeper into blind fanaticism, they lose their grip, the divine magic taking their thoughts from them and replacing it with scriptures and sacraments. Some religions claim disillusioned clerics are in a higher state of being, but I do not believe that is what happened to my friend. Disillusioned clerics often become wayward, wandering the world, executing upon the dogmas of their devotion with impunity and without reason. In the swamps to the south wanders such a cleric, and in his disillusionment he has turned his home into a place of madness. Trees that dance and water that boils. He calls himself the Prince of the Bog, and those who wander his domain believe him to bend reality itself. Though insane, a lost and disillusioned cleric is no less powerful. The mercenaries told me Mercurian wrapped themselves entirely in heavy cloth, as the goddess says a person of the priesthood should. They abstained from eating anything but raw meat, so that the poisons of the earth could never enter their food. Their eyes darkened as they began to give up on sleep, as the goddess says that is when evil creeps into one's mind. They began to burn the bodies on the battlefield before they had even died. As the goddess states, those who fall in battle simply were not of pure intention. They gave up on healing and followed the words of the goddess. In the last verses of the Testament of her grace is a poem. And as the world reaches the end, as the gift begins to fade and retire, fear not, for the end will come quickly in blaze and in fire. returned to the kiln to be reshaped and remolded. Those who have failed her will be in flame scalded. Mercurian fixated on those words. The Talon Knights had begged them to lower their defenses and calm themselves, but that only made them angry. Mercurian killed 30 soldiers and fled into the night, burning the soldiers' eyes from their skulls before running off into the mountains. I had hoped when I returned home I would find them here, recovering both their mind and their soul. A season into walking home and I found them. They were unrecognizable. Their ruby-red robes faded and tattered. Their body had grown thin. The smell on the air was one of blood and ashes. Every step they took ignited the grass around their feet. Every breath danced on the air as cinders. I approached them, asking my friend to come back to the world. Their eyes blazed like the sun, as they always did when they did the goddess's work. However, the skin around their eyes had burned, cracked, and damaged. In their eyes there was no recollection of me. They attacked. I fled, barely managing to escape as they scorched the trees, turned the rain into fire. For days I sought tales of them. I was told they could be seen walking battlefields, burning the spirits out of the wounded who could be saved, finding diseased villages and immolating every house one by one, whispering prayers and chanting poetry. Many mercenary bands were hunting them. I even met witch hunters and mage breakers from the east who were trying to find and kill my old friend. Seasons later, when I was almost home, I awoke in my tent to the smell of cinders and burning meat. I awoke with a start and I grabbed my sword. Outside of my tent, Mercurian sat beside a roaring fire. Their eyes locked on to me with hatred, but they didn't move, simply asking if I would sit with them. In between every set of words they spoke, they continued to whisper prayers and quote the testament of her grace. I sat across from them, never setting my blade aside, but they seemed to understand my apprehension. When they spoke, their voice was hoarse, like they never, ever stopped praying, and their voice was straining against them. I will simply quote what they said to me, as I didn't speak for the entire encounter. I knew you once, when the springs and summers were still for me. I knew you, when the world still tasted of blackberries and pine sap, before it tasted of pestilence and apocalypse. I knew me. The whispers of the goddess spoke not of my violence, not of my fury, or of the world I would soon burn. She only ever whispered to me to be kind. Yet the texts state her to be vengeful. Yet her gift offers me the most hatred and the worst of violence. I knew her. I cannot understand myself anymore. I do not hear her whispers anymore. I do not understand you anymore. You are a plague, a wanderer on a dead world that I am supposed to kill. You are her creation, her joy, her proudest achievement, and yet the scripture begs me to kill you. The goddess gave me the sword with which to kill you. She told me to save you and offered me the fire for which to scorch the land and use the bones of all as kindling. I knew you. For every whisper I hear of the goddess reminding me that mercy is the highest virtue, she offers me flame. As I dragged 100 men from the field to heal them, I left 1,000 burnt out and dead in the dirt. I knew her words like I know myself, and yet the miracles she hands me are hiding daggers. I knew me. She branded me Redeemer and handed me the headsman's axe. Her actions match not to her words, and not to my words, and I used to know me. I am too far gone. I now wander, doing only as the scripture says, in hopes that one day her commands do not tangle in the thicket of her weapons. Her word has been strangled by her hand. I am her hand. Tell those of my home that I wish I missed them. Tell the goddess that I miss her. Tell yourself that I miss you. Whatever I serve now, it is not the goddess. It is the word of those who claimed to know her. I serve not the goddess of mercy, loving and creative. I serve not her daughters' peace, joy, family, love. I serve not her daughters, nor her, nor me, nor you. I serve words written. I used to know me. They stood from my campfire and wandered away, whispering prayers. In that moment I wept, fear gripping my throat and sorrow drowning my heart. I didn't understand what they meant. To this day I'm not sure I do. It felt as though they were warning me, but I do not know of what. I asked the priests of our Lorimark when I returned home, and they offered me only this. Perhaps obsession to the word is as unhealthy as living without it. Belief is important, but to assume the answers are always present in the words of the goddess would be to lose your mind in contradiction and nuance. Perhaps the line between a zealot and a non-believer is not as wide as one would think. I am not sure I understand. But I would like to offer you all this. The goddess is one of mercy, but she does level kingdoms in the Testament. She does love us, but she will end our world one day. Maybe her will has changed, and maybe the texts are wrong. I cannot tear my devotion from her, but maybe it's best to learn that she may have been misquoted. Maybe the world changes with the goddess, and maybe it's not our place to understand her will. Maybe it's our job to grow with her. All I know is that I miss my friend. I cannot understand why the heavens would steal their mind like that. I do not know if there is a way to bring them home. My faith in the goddess is unwavering. But if my goddess could not save my friend from such a fate, maybe my goddess wasn't the cause of it. Next we meet, I want to tell you a tale of daring thieves in a city to the east. The cunning smiles of cut purses and brigands unparalleled, and the fate they met after going on a daring heist to steal a relic most rare. I have a tome of tales from every nation to share with you all. I have seen many monsters, many heroes. I have learned of the magic offered by the goddess and the magic humans can conjure for themselves. I have seen warfare, and I have tales of peace. I cannot wait to share them all with you. Good night, and thank you.
Legends of Lorelei is a narrative fiction podcast by Livewire Multimedia Stories. The Bard is voiced and created by Gwen Fullman, who can be found as @Gwen_Fullman on Instagram. Written by Gwen Fullman. Co-executive produced by Gwen Fullman and Elizabeth Fullman, with music by Gwen Fullman. If you enjoyed what you just listened to, please consider supporting us at patreon.com/Livewire Multimedia Stories. There, you will get exclusive access to early episodes and fun perks like access to polls and our Discord server, where we collaborate on projects and resources, share fan art, and just hang out. If you like this project and would like to learn more about it or any of our other projects, please follow us on social media. We are on Tumblr @Livewire Media, on Instagram @Livewire Multimedia, and on YouTube @Livewire Multimedia Stories. But really, the best way to support us is to share this with a friend. Thank you for listening.